Nationalism. Relationship to the 19th century. How does the ISM influence ideas and events during Industrial Revolution? Nationalism was a radical ideology, as was liberalism after the final defeat of Napoleon. It evolved from a real or imagined culture identity, which is represented by a common language, common history, and common territory. Nationalists traditionally attempted to turn this culture identity into a political identity whereby political boundaries coincide with culture unity. For an example, France is composed of French-speaking people who consider themselves French. In the 19th century, population continued to grow. In many countries, population doubled. The preceding example may seem overly simplistic, but when one considers the large number of ethnic groups forced to live under a government comprised of another ethnic group, such as in Russia or 19th century Austria, the problem becomes more apparent. The overlapping and intermingling of groups, each seeking to establish its own identity, can easily become an explosive situation. Nationalism was the most powerful of all the isms in this period. France and Great Britain, strong national states, had inspired jealousy throughout the rest of Europe. Other nations disorganized as they wanted to unify. Early nationalism movements in the early 19th century, Europe was liberal and internationalist, but they gradually became more conservative. Nationalism is considered a major contributing cause of the World War I and World War II, and many other wars of the modern era. In Africa and Asia in the 20th century, nationalism movements often arose in opposition to colonialism. After the fall of the Soviet Union, powerful nationalism sentiments in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet. This picture basically shows how, beginning in the 19th century, the Greek War of Independence began as a rebellion by Greek nationalism against the ruling Ottoman Empire Founder. Among the key themes of nationalism and its most enduring legacy, the cultural assignations of romantic nationalism have become central in post-Enlightenment and political philosophy. From its earliest streams, with their focus on the development of national languages and folklore and the spiritual value of local customs and traditions, to the moments that would redraw the map of Europe and led to calls for self-determination of nationalism. Nationalism was one of the key issues in Romanticism, determining its role, expressions, and meanings. Nationalism as a principle was a child of the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. During the Reign of Terror, the Republic's leaders appealed to the founder as Frenchmen to repel the foreign armies which hoped to overthrow the Republic and re-establish the ancient regime. During Napoleon's invasions, nationalism sentiments throughout Europe consolidated opposition to its military campaign. A philosopher responsible for contributing to the rise of a new aggressive German nationalism, Fichte John Gottlieb. During the second half of the 19th century, he thought that individual freedom could be attained only by identification with the nation. His belief in ethical idealism did not include a personal God, but the concept of an infinite ego. Perhaps the most concise definition of nationalism was the German philosopher John Herder, who argued that every people has its own particular spirit and genius, which expresses through culture and language. People at a particular geographic area shared a culture and a particular language. Other person was John Gottlieb. He was a German philosopher. He was one of the founding figures of the philosophical movement known as German idealism, which developed from the theoretical and ethical writing.